Welcome to the Dungeon Talk, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast providing tutorials, info, inspiration, and interviews to listen to at home. I'm your host, Nathaniel, and joining me today is Matt, a Dungeons & Dragons player of over 20 years of experience. And this is episode 6, Working Together.
Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Do-do-do-do! Da-dum.
So, working together is really important to Dungeons & Dragons, whether it's someone buffing an ally to strike down their foe, or reviving players, puzzles, traps, everything. So, thanks for joining me, Matt.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience with D&D so everyone here can know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Maine, and I've been playing D&D and other role-playing games since the early 1980s. So quite a while now, on and off. Played all through high school. Then in college, I played some other role-playing games, particularly GURPS, which was a really big one, and Car Wars. And then, post-college and into the present, I've been doing a lot of D&D, both 4th edition and now 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
So,
are you a dungeon master, or are you traditionally a player?
I've done both. I really enjoy being a player more. Frankly, dungeon mastering was great. I did that for a number of years. Actually, when my oldest son wanted to start playing D&D, I DM'd a campaign for him and his friends for, 3 or 4 years at least, and that was 4th edition stuff. And that was fun, but I kind of jam a little bit more on actually being a player than kind of being the DM.
Yeah. So you just told me that you wanted to talk about teamwork. So the theme of this episode is about working together and how you can work together with the players, how the DM can work with the players, and as well as just other general stuff as the entire group as a whole. I did a little bit of research. Do you want to go first? Do you have any ideas on how working together works?
No, you knocked it out. What'd you find out from your research, and what do you think works?
So I found works, and from my own experience as well as the internet, which is a super helpful tool. If you want to get to encourage teamwork between the players as a dungeon master, most of the time, it's individual backstories is a very good way. Getting the stories to intertwine within each other, where they might have met one another prior to the campaign, or they may just be meeting, but they're still set in the same world. For example, in my most recent campaign that I just started, one of my players, all the players are on an airship, and one of the players was just getting on that airship before the actual campaign began to start. So you also want to you want to make sure that it's very well binded, well continued. It has lots of continuity to make sure everything makes sense. Because if something is out of place, you can mess up even your whole campaign.
Yeah, it becomes awkward a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Do you have any ideas on how this will?
Yeah, I sure do. So I mean, the backstory stuff you're talking about, and kind of making sure everybody meshes. I think that as a DM and as a player as well, it's really important to understand motivations, right? So, and whenever you're talking about this kind of stuff, it's not just a player's motivation. So, me, Matt, as a human being that's playing, why am I playing? What do I want to get out of this? What are my goals? What are the things that really drive me in playing this game? But also my character, and those are two separate things. So, me, Matt, is separate from my character of say Eladrin, the rogue, the elven rogue. And our motivations may be separate things, but they're both things that are driving us as we're playing. And every player has those things, right?
Yeah. Did you do the same thing I did when I first found out about the Eladrin? I just wanted to play an elf and name my character Eladrin.
I didn't do that, but that was I actually did something like that a long time ago. but yeah, it's the same kind of thing. That's kind of neat, though.
Yeah, one of my earlier characters, I just found out about the Eladrin and their like seasonal elf things.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool. I don't want to do that. I'm just gonna steal the name. So I played a character Eladrin.
I love playing the Eladrins. I love the face step, as you know, which is I thought that was one of the neatest, kind of like attributes they could have. That was pretty cool. But you know, these motivations. So you know, these are the things that drive both the people who are playing and the characters they have. And as a DM or as other players, you got to kind of understand them and use them to make sure that all the players are working together. That's how you motivate them. Those are the little, the Scooby snacks that kind of get people to play the games and play along and kind of move forward.
Yeah, because oftentimes you will find, occasionally you'll find groups that are like, where one player's like, hey, I don't think my character is getting along with them. I don't think I'm going to stay with them. And what you could do is just totally be like, no, I'm the DM. No, can't do that at all. But what I think is a bit more fun way to do things is you can say, sure, you can totally scrap your character and make a new one that has motivations to stay with the group.
Yep, absolutely. Or you can play on, you can talk to them and say, hey, why are you playing this game? What does motivate your character? What motivates you? Why, you've invested a lot of time in this, and kind of use that carrot over a stick kind of, methodology is sort of the, how can we entice you to work together? Because, really they're all there. They're all there for adventure. They're all there for, glory, dungeons, golds, dragons, the whole, level advancement, all that kind of stuff. That's
glory,
magic
victory,
items,
honor, mutton.
Yeah, exactly. So, so how do you, this is going to sound horrible, but as a DM, how do you manipulate your people to get along and kind of move forward as a group, right?
Yeah.
Leadership.
So I'm some of my best friends are in my D&D group, so it's really easy for me to dungeon master them and sort of like, control the sort of group atmosphere and what kind of game I'm running. But what's really troubling is I also run my school's D&D club. I co-DM there, and what happens is I don't know everybody very well, and when I like survey them or something, what I end up getting is like 30 different play styles that I have no idea how to control.
Yeah.
Like one person likes dungeon crawls, one person likes combat, one person likes a mano fights, one person likes big fights, and it's totally chaotic.
Yeah, and you don't have control over, you don't have a say into who's joining the club, and you got to take all the comers. So really, it's kind of a matter of how do you design your game to give a little bit of a taste for everybody that gets a little bit of what they want as well, right?
Yeah,
it might be worthwhile talking to them beforehand and saying, okay, you've created your character. What do you enjoy about things like one likes the dungeon crawls, one likes the big battles, but really talk to them and say, okay, what do you enjoy out of this? What do you really like? Is it the the storytelling? Do you really enjoy interaction with NPCs? Do you really like kind of working your skills and really finding new stuff? Kind of getting a deeper dive, a better sense of them, and also showing that curiosity and what it is they're all about might kind of bring them to the table a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. So the next little thing I have in my notes here is talking about the DM to player relationship more than just the player's group work. So this is the part that I know you're interested in, the total story within that's created between the players and the dungeon master. It's super important because it constructs the narrative, and it's the control over the entire story and how you end up telling these stories to your friends and what happens. So what do you think is the best way to have a narrative that builds upon itself well and is where the DM and players can work together?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts on that. I mean, you got to have a skeleton, right? You have, as a DM, you kind of have to have the skeleton of a narrative of, here's where we're going, here's what we're doing, here are the goals, here's what we're trying to do. But layered on top of that, you really have to have the flexibility to be able to adapt and change. And I think really the best scenarios, the stories you'll be talking about with your friends, with your gaming friends, 15, 20 years from now, if you can imagine that, are the ones that were totally unexpected. They weren't the ones you planned, but they're the ones where suddenly you're leading a skeleton, an undead army of skeletons, down a dungeon to confront a dragon because somehow your cleric, couldn't turn him, but your bard convinced him to all folly. I mean, that kind of craziness where you can just kind of stop it, or as a DM, you can kind of roll with it and say, all right, let's tell a story. Let's see where this all goes. And that's the blast. So you have to have structure in place, a skeleton in place, but then that adaptability. There's an old saying that the finest battle plans only survive until the first engagement. And then after that, you've got to shift, you've got to go, you got to be quick on your feet, quick in your mind, and basically be able to play off what the characters are doing and kind of keep leading them forward, keep moving the direction forward without them taking over.
Yeah, I think what was so alluring for me to become a dungeon master was because I love world building, role playing, and creating characters and crazy monsters and drawing stuff like that. So I originally wasn't in it for the story. As much as I love a good story, I didn't really see that part as interesting as the rest of it. Because I would always play around and just spout out nonsense as my own NPCs. And when I found this game, I was like, I totally want to do this. And then when I first became a dungeon master, I was like, all right, I have this straight up linear path like a video game. We have to go one track and that's it. And everything fell apart because you have to discover this entirely new world and way of storytelling to write a broken story that's not meant to go to the way you want it to. And usually you always have what I see easiest to do is come up with a starting point, an end point, and then a bunch of nonsense in the middle, and then they can it makes it easier because then they can sort of just muck about trying to get from point A to point B. And they can pretty much, and the best way to do it is instead of just having them at set encounters, usually the players never go to the set encounters and just totally do their own thing. So as long as what you have to do is you sort of guiding water, setting up a dam or something for the water to flow in a certain way. You have to just you have to mold the players to end up at the final boss while placing all of your encounters in front of them.
Yeah, another way of putting that is herding cats.
Yes, herding cats.
Cats don't herd. And some really good ways to kind of make that stuff easier for you as a DM is to kind of have some stuff pre-planned out that you can plug and play as you need to, right? So having a variety of NPCs you can pull in, having scenarios that with a tweak here or a tweak there, you can apply to any situation, and just kind of also knowing the rules so that you know them so well that they don't become obvious and cumbersome in the story. So being able to kind of roll with stuff. One thing that I kind of took to doing, particularly in some of the latest DMing stuff that I've done, was I read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi books.
Yes,
more fantasy than sci-fi. And as I was kind of doing some world building and some creating and stuff, I started borrowing characters and scenarios from some of my favorite fantasy stuff and using them as NPCs, using them as people in my worlds.
Yeah, no, I love doing that kind of thing because it's so easy to do that. And then the players more often than not, sometimes if it's just a one shot or something or a short little thing, they'll totally just make a character based around another fantasy character. I've had a player before try and play Iron Man, I think, with a certain build of an artificer. And I was like, how do you do this?
at one point I had them saving, or they had themselves, really. It wasn't anything I came up with, but they were saving Dobby the house elf from Harry Potter. And that was nothing that I'd worked into the story, but it happened. I mean, they were unsuccessful, but they tried awful hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of art and drawing and creation and creativity. So some of my very favorite YouTube channels I find online are usually D&D animations, where they animate like little stories and funny stories that they find, and they all have different styles, art styles, as well as like different DMing styles. And what I've seen is some of them, like one style that I've seen is very interesting to me. Is they more often than not, they will come to a prepared session, with that, like a brand new session that they're just starting, and instead of having a world pre-planned, they go up and ask the players, "Hey, where do you want to be?" And then they start building it from there. Like they just have like a list of prepared characters and encounters and ideas that they can just throw at the players at random without even having a general end goal in mind. So they can just pick and choose to create. It's sort of like a make your own adventure style thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what else that does too is that gives all the players ownership in the adventure and a desire to see it succeed, because you've asked them for their desires. You've asked them for their druthers. What do they want? And they've told you, and they got it.
Yeah.
And like so they have to go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
which is kind of cool.
It's really cool. In my my most current campaign, my brother is like, I have so many ideas, like stuff I could add, and I was like, totally. And he's like, no, you're not gonna like them. And then he tells me, and then I just throw them right in, and he's like, oh, okay.
It doesn't really hurt anything, does it? Because this is all in our heads. It's all imagination.
Yeah, because
it's not like you're gonna go out and wrek your parents' car or something. It's all up here. It's awesome.
Yeah, theater of the mind. It's so great. Like,
yeah.
Because a lot of my players want to do a lot of stuff with magic in a way that's blatantly technological, and because they have so many cool scientific ideas. Because all my players are very, very smart. And they know what they're doing, so they will try and come up with these super sciencey ways. And the only step back is that it's magic and not technology.
Yeah.
So what I've just straight up, because what most of my campaigns have become is either steampunk or have like magitech or something.
Yeah, which is cool, which can be fun. But kind of the system of magic, that's so much fun to explore. How does magic work in your world? How where does mana come from? Is it everywhere? Is it is it totally expendable? Is it really scarce?
Yeah.
How does it interact with the physical world?
Yeah, because usually when I'm like creating worlds, there's always like, so the stuff you want to think of are like time, like how long has it been? Is the world very new and unexplored, or is it really old? You want to know about the landscape. What's it like? You want to know about the gods. Are they distant or very close? You want to know about planes of existence. You want to know about different factions. And then most importantly is you want to know how magic works. Because it's magic is such an integral part of the game, and it's so crazy on how it works. Because I often describe it as like just like a giant mass of energy that people are drawing from and controlling and shaping to their will.
Well, and that's kind of the cool thing. I mean, magic is so important, and magic is so integral and desirable because we don't have it in the real world. It is something we all want, and it is something we yearn after. And when we play this with our heads, we can have it, we can do it, and that's that's really kind of the fantastic and the fantasy,
So I don't know about you, but I am a massive fan of the D&D show Critical Role. And something that I've seen them do is what like they'll come up with like Matt. He's such a great DM because he knows just how his players so well, and he'll come up with like with Magic. It's what I love that a lot of their players do is they come up with like sort of aesthetics and themes for their Magic and how they shape it. Like Caduceus Clay, he's got his like mushrooms and bugs and fair and sort of like mystic fae theme. Jester has her like donuts and cookies and cupcakes and rainbows and unicorns. And Caleb has his cats. It's just so great to see it. So
they're projecting who their characters are and who the players are too.
Yeah. So I love because I love just drawing my parties. Like I will literally spend like tons of time trying to perfect the design on their characters. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's about.
You talk about the aesthetic, and that's really important for players to really have a sense of, you know, who their character is and what they want them to be, and you know, if they flesh out that detail, I think it becomes easier for them to play and to have that story, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's all the time we have. Thanks so much for joining me. I had a blast.
Likewise, buddy. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up there, folks. See you next time on the Dungeon Talk.
Once again, thanks for listening to this episode of the Dungeon Talk. We upload weekly on Fridays and upload weekly on Saturdays if you want to check out our brand new YouTube channel. You can also find the latest news and updates on our Instagram at The Dungeon Talk. You can go ahead and ask questions on our email, thedungeontalk@gmail.com, and you can listen basically anywhere you can get your podcast. So once again, thanks for listening. Stay nerdy, stay safe. Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk!